now available in paperback and e-readers. Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door takes on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed, all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess featuring a bonus pin-up and the other 2 books in the Cyber Goddess saga at online bookstores everywhere today. In the last few months, I've seen many YouTubers out here making videos criticizing your Kevin Samuels. Now, I did a couple of videos and a live stream deconstructing your Kevin Samuels talking points, but what I'm seeing these days is a lot of people getting really personal about your Kevin Samuels. And what I'm seeing with these people out here as related to your Kevin Samuels is something I talked about in one of my previous videos called the High Value Cult. And when it comes down to your Kevin Samuels, he's almost as polarizing as your Donald Trump is to the country, and many of these black YouTubers, they really get so caught up in their emotions about him that we're not getting any sort of critical examination of him. Now, in several of my previous videos and live streams, I deconstructed many of your Kevin Samuels talking points, like his whole high value man theory and how it really did not make much logical sense. And when I look at many of black YouTube these days, they're reminding me a lot of all the fervor that took place with your Oprah Winfrey back in the 1980s. Now, back in the 1980s, when the Oprah Winfrey Show first started, you had many black women getting in their emotions about Oprah Winfrey hosting her talk show, and most people really did not want to see many of Oprah Winfrey's flaws, because here was a black woman for the first time hosting her own talk show and having a national audience, and many black women believed that because Oprah Winfrey had arrived, they could arrive too. And many black women at the time, they created a covert contract with themselves that if they gave Oprah Winfrey a pass, they would be able to get an opportunity to elevate themselves to the same level that she was on and receive the same attention she received. And when I look at your Kevin Samuels, I see a lot of parallels between him and Oprah Winfrey, but in his case, I see a lot of black men out here participating in the same behavior that many black women participated in as related to Oprah Winfrey. Now, your black men these days, they're doing the same thing with Kevin Samuels, elevating him to put him on a pedestal, and they're creating a covert contract where they believe that if they give Kevin Samuels a pass, they will be able to rise to the same level that he is on right now. And because they see Kevin Samuels on his way to getting near to the 100,000 subscriber mark or the million subscriber mark, they think that if they agree with a Kevin Samuels, they will be able to get the same opportunities that your Kevin Samuels has right now. And just like those black women in the 80s really didn't get a payoff for their covert contract, I don't believe many of these black men are going to get a payoff for their covert contract that they're establishing. Because when you go out here and you create a covert contract, it's only one person who knows that you're creating the covert contract, and that person is you. Because everything that Kevin Samuels may say may be something that you may relate to, but going along with him is not going to elevate you in any way, shape, or form. Unfortunately, many black men out here are so caught up in their emotions about Kevin Samuels that most can't really think objectively as related to this man and what he's presenting. Now, I believe many of these black men out here are caught up in their emotions about your Kevin Samuels because they see him getting the attention of black women. And it's like David Carroll says about how your black pastor usually can get a pass out here, because the pastor is out here with the black woman. Many of these black men, they don't want to go out here and say anything about your Kevin Samuels because they don't want to go out here and offend the black women. And because they, see Kevin Samuels getting the attention of the black women, that's another reason why many of your black men are just so caught up in your Kevin Samuels. Now, they're caught up in him because he is representing ideals that they want to have about being this high value man and getting the attention of this black woman. And that's where I see a lot of the main reason why so many people are caught up in all of the fervor over your Kevin Samuels and how he has created what I called the high value cult. And what's really dangerous about cult-like thinking is nobody can go out here and present a counterpoint or a critique in an objective fashion. And that's the real issue I have with many black folks as related to your Kevin Samuels, is that we're not getting any sort of constructive presentation as related to a critique of this individual. Either people get caught up in their emotions to the point where they want to argue about this man, or they just go out here and they want to just go along with his talking points without ever thinking about them critically. So we have a lot of black people caught up in their emotions about this man, and that's not the way it should be about any man, because nobody is perfect, and all of the talking points should be deconstructed and presented so that you can see the counterpoint to this man's arguments, like I did one of my live streams talking about his whole high value man theory and how it just has a lot of holes in it, because there are other men out here who have high value, like your blue collar workers, who oftentimes make six figures all the time, because many of your auto mechanics and your transit workers, these men make six figures on the regular, but they wouldn't be considered a high value man by your Kevin Samuels criteria, even though they present an essential service and are many of the black male workers out here. I mean, back in the 80s and the 90s, that was most of the men out here who were making the real money, because a lot of times black men could not enter those corporate circles, and a lot of times the only way they could make any decent wage was with civil service. But those wouldn't be considered high value men, because many of the black women who got caught up in Oprah's rhetoric and Terry McMillan's rhetoric, they are looking for the good black man. And I believe that the high value man is just a repackaging of Madison Avenue and Hollywood's social construct of the good black man. And that's where your Kevin Samuels has the big appeal, because he is pushing the same narratives that writers like Terry McMillan and Oprah Winfrey have pushed about this good black man. And a lot of these black males, they want to try to cash in on that type of rhetoric, because even though they'll sit there and critique black women for hours on end in a live stream, they still want the attention of those black women. And that's where I see your Kevin Samuels not really being any sort of constructive, because when I look at his talking points and I look at him attacking black women, it's just another repackaging of the gender wars once again, and that's not really constructive to black people in the big picture. And the high value cult, as I see it, is not really constructive to black people, because when you have a black man again going out here and attacking black women, it makes people feel good, but it does not allow the black community to grow, because yes, he's sitting there going back and forth with these females online, saying the things that men want to say to black women, but that doesn't really help both black men and black women outside of sating their feelings, because it does not really allow us to grow as a people, because we're not really focused on building, and we're not really focused on trying to mend our issues with each other that were been created by white supremacy. And again, I look at Kevin Samuels and I don't really see anything constructive coming out of his discourse, other than a mainstream media effort, as I believe, to try to control the narrative. And I believe that with your Kevin Samuels, he is, again, like male Oprah Winfrey, trying to control the narrative as related to the black discourse on social media, because many have heard the discourse on black social media, and they're seeing that more and more black people are talking about black empowerment. More and more black people are talking about tangibles, and the way to get black people off the road of talking about black empowerment, participating in group economics, and talking about getting tangible resources back from the government, from the taxes they pay for, is to get us looking at one man and then have us following behind that man and his narratives, the same way black women followed behind Oprah Winfrey back in the 1980s. And as they followed Oprah Winfrey back in the 1980s, it all became about misandry and man hate, and it all became about the no good black man. And what we're seeing on social media is a parallel to that, where we have black men sitting there talking for hours about this no good black woman. And this doesn't really, again, help us heal as a people, because instead of us talking about trying to heal the wounds, we just continue to fire salvos in another series of shots in the gender war. And instead of us focused on black empowerment and focused on getting tangibles, we are focused on getting into our feelings about whatever your Kevin Samuels has said. And instead of it being black women going out here, we've got black men going out here and participating in the same type of behavior that black women participated in back during the 80s. And that's what I'm seeing again, and I'm seeing how there's another hand back here with your Kevin Samuels in an effort to try to control the narrative as related to the black discourse on social media. Because over the last 20 years, we have seen that when black men came to the platforms like YouTube, again, they were talking about men's issues. And when I look at your Kevin Samuels, I see a way to try to control that narrative, because if they can get all of these black men to follow behind your Kevin Samuels the same way black women followed behind Oprah Winfrey, this can get them off the road of building and back on the road to consuming. Because when you have black men out here chasing black women and trying to become high value men just to win the favor of the female, you have a male who is becoming gynocentric, and all he's thinking about is pleasing the female, getting the attention of the female, and getting the approval of the female, instead of trying to find his value as a man under the Most High living God. And when I look again at many of these black men who are out here and getting so caught up in the Kevin Samuels cult as I see it, I see a group of men who are making this man a god and violating the first commandment as related to the 10 commandments in the Old Testament, and what Jesus' first commandment in the New Testament, where he said, love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and spirit. And again, when you do that, you are violating those commandments and making this man a god before the Most High God. And that's not something I believe God would want anybody to do out here. And if your Kevin Samuels was a Christian, he would have admonished all of these black men and black women to stop making him into a god and stop getting so emotional to the point where you're going to want to worship this man. Because yes, he's saying things that you want to hear, but he's not a perfect person. And only people in a cult will sit there and say, oh, you can't disagree with this man. But many of these black people, again, caught up in their emotions and can't see where they're going wrong. Now, I saw the feud between your Umar Johnson and your Kevin Samuels. And again, while your Umar Johnson was, as I see it, really jealous, he was really jealous because he was getting the attention of the black women, like many of the black men out here. And when I looked at that, I said, a lot of these people, they're worshiping this man. And this is not a good look for black people, because you should not be putting a man on a pedestal, because to put a man on a pedestal like this, it is going to be a major disappointment, because when you put people on pedestals, you're looking up at them and you can't see all of their flaws. And if you can't see all of their flaws, then eventually you're going to wind up deeply disappointed when some scandal winds up coming along and winding up discrediting him. Yes, I know that he criticizes black women, and that makes a lot of black men feel good, but you have to find your value in yourself, and the only way you can find that value is through the Most High living God. And a lot of black men, they don't want to go out here and do that hard work by finding their own value, and they're using this guy as a proxy to be able to hear the things that they want to say to black women, and they want to be able to see those black women get the impact from those emotions. But when I look at, again, the big picture of black people, you should not be worshiping this man. Yes, he's saying what you want to hear and making you feel good right now, but you need to be making efforts in your own life to move yourself ahead, and you need to be making efforts to get yourself to a place where you can actualize your potential. And you shouldn't be, again, worshiping this man, because we should have no other gods before us, before the Most High God. And this whole cult, as I see it, of worshiping this one man is almost as blasphemous as what black women did with Oprah Winfrey in the 80s. And what happened to those black women in the 80s was, instead of them focusing on trying to empower their children, they got steered down the road to consumerism. And that's how Oprah Winfrey was able to create consumer platforms like Oprah's Book Club to sell black women all sorts of books with all sorts of crazy ideas, and then push all sorts of narratives on black women through her henchmen like Dr. Phil. And that's what Obsidian wants to do. He wants to become your Kevin Samuels, Dr. Phil, or his Susie Orman, or Dr. Oz. And that's what many of these black men, I believe, are trying to do. They're trying to become the next Susie Orman or Dr. Phil by praising Kevin Samuels, again creating that covert contract between themselves and this man, not understanding they may be possibly making a compromise with white supremacy, because we don't know where this guy came from, and we don't know what his narratives are or how they are going to impact the black community. But I don't see black people coming together. All I see is more division, and more division is not good for black people, because we can't empower ourselves if we're apart from each other, and we can't empower ourselves if we don't try to heal these rifts that were created by white supremacists from the 60s onward, which were meant to divide the black community so that they could conquer us and be able to control us. And we really, again, need to focus on building our relationships with each other, because we, as I see it, aren't the enemy of each other, but we need to work through things, because we're sitting there and it's just more back and forths with each other, and back and forths just don't take you anywhere but the same vicious circle that the gender war took us many years ago. Now, if you want to see more of my videos and see me be able to make more videos, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Taking Care of Business. The man who rules the world breaks in a brand new partner to help him take care of business in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, Taking Care of Business at paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere.